Hello everyone, welcome to MMBS111 Introductory Microbiology. This mini lecture will cover concepts from Chapter 1, Section 1.1, Introduction to Microbes. So to begin, I just want to point out some of the key learning outcomes from Section 1.1. These are the things that you should understand or know by the end of this lecture. First, be able to define microbiology and microorganisms. Second, name the 6 types of microorganisms. Third, describe bacteria, archaea, eukaryotic organisms, and viruses. And this is being able to distinguish certain characteristics possessed by each cell type. Describe the theory of evolution, and name 2 ways that microbes shape our planet. So to begin, let's define microbiology. Microbiology is defined as a specialized area of biology that deals with living things too small to be seen without magnification. And these things are microorganisms. So anything that is too small to be seen with the naked eye and must be observed with a microscope, we consider a microorganism. And microbiology is focused on studying those organisms. There are 6 types of microbes that you will be learning about in this course, this term. The first are the bacteria, and these are single-celled organisms, no nucleus, no membrane-bound organelles. They do have their own unique special features that other cell types do not possess. Also, the archaea, similar to bacteria in that they are single-celled organisms without a nucleus, but they have some very unique features as well that distinguish them from bacteria. The protozoa, this is a very diverse group of organisms that don't really fit into the other groups of microorganisms, so they all kind of get grouped together in the protozoa. And these include algae as well. We won't spend time learning about algae in this course since algae don't colonize humans. Fungi, and fungi are both microscopic and macroscopic, so there are forms that have to be observed with a microscope and then others that we can easily observe with the naked eye. Most of the fungi that you will study in this course are microscopic. Viruses, and we'll talk more about viruses and their characteristics a little later on in this course, but viruses are the only group of organisms here that are not considered living. They are not made of cells. They do possess some molecules that are part of living organisms, but they are not considered living in and of themselves. And then finally, the helminths, and we're talking about worms, primarily parasitic worms is what we'll focus on in this course. So those are the 6 groups that you need to know and that we will be studying during this course. So there are 3 cell types that you need to know and distinguish, and we will spend some more time a little later on in this course learning about each cell type and their unique features. This is a phylogenetic tree, and phylogenetic trees show relationships between groups of organisms. So the 3 cell types are the bacteria, the archaea, and the eukarya. Prior to a few years ago, the bacteria and archaea were also called prokaryotes and included in a larger group. But as scientists have studied these cell types, they've realized that bacteria and archaea have some very distinct differences. So we don't really group them as prokaryotes. We're going to talk about them separately. So about 3.5 billion years ago, the last universal common ancestor, or what we call LUCA, derived these 3 cell types. And if you look at the phylogenetic tree, you can see here is the branch, and the branch shows where each new group diverged based on a new characteristic. So this phylogenetic tree shows the relationship between the groups, and you can see that Archaea and Eukarya share a more recent common ancestor, and you can see that right here at this branch. So the Archaea and the Eukarya are more closely related than these groups are to the bacteria. But these cells originated from one ancestral cell type that is now extinct. So let's talk about these cell types. The bacteria and the Archaea are very small cells, typically about 10 times smaller than eukaryotes. They do not possess organelles. Organelles are structures that are enclosed in a membrane that perform a very specific function for the cell, and bacteria and Archaea lack these structures. They also do not possess a nucleus, so their genetic material is found usually in a somewhat centralized location within the cytoplasm of the cell, so it's not protected within a membrane. All bacteria and Archaea are microorganisms. There is not a multicellular version of these 2 cell types. The other cell type are the eukaryotes. Eukaryotes are generally larger than bacteria and Archaea, and they do possess organelles. So they include things like a nucleus, mitochondria, chloroplasts, a number of other organelles that we will spend time learning about a little bit later on. Some eukaryotes are microorganisms and some are macroscopic. Eukaryotic cells include animal cells and plant cells. Then we have the viruses, and viruses are not cells. They do not have a cell membrane. They do possess a small amount of genetic material. Sometimes it's DNA, sometimes it is RNA. Typically, the virus is composed of a protein coat, and they range in size and complexity anywhere between a small bacterial cell and a large organic molecule like a carbohydrate or protein. Viruses do not meet a number of the requirements to be considered living. They are not able to reproduce independently. They must use the cell in order to do that, and they are completely non-functional or inert outside of their host organism. And we'll talk more about viruses later in chapter 5 and learn a little more of the details about viruses and how they reproduce. So microbes have a very long history with the planet, and they are found everywhere. They're found in the soil, and not just surface soil, but deep layers of the Earth's crust. They are also found in the oceans, and they contribute to the quality of the water as well as the characteristics of bodies of water on the planet. They are also responsible for the composition of our atmosphere. They are found in polar ice caps And in Arctic oceans, they're found on geothermal vents and volcanic mountains. They're found within the bodies of plants and animals. They're really found everywhere. And they are essential to life on Earth and contribute greatly to the condition of Earth itself. So really quickly, we're going to talk about scientific theory. In chapter 1, you read briefly, hopefully, about the theory of evolution. And I'm sure that you have heard about the theory of evolution before, maybe in a high school science class or some other science classes that you've taken. And of course, it comes up in the news every once in a while. There are a lot of misconceptions about evolution and what it is and what it is not. So evolution is considered the accumulation of changes that occur in organisms over time. And those changes gradually lead to diversification. Sometimes it leads to a new species, but these changes lead to diverse organisms. Evolution is particularly easy to study in microbiology because these microscopic organisms are able to reproduce very rapidly. So we can see multiple generations of an organism very quickly. And we can see how mutations in their DNA or alterations in that genetic material then contribute to changes in progeny in their later organisms. The theory of evolution is testable by science, and there is a lot of evidence that supports the theory of evolution. Many times when we hear this word theory, we think about how this word is applied in common language. And theory, as we use it in common language, can sometimes mean a guess or an idea about how something happened or why something is. But it isn't necessarily supported by observations or evidence or experimentation. When we use the word theory in science, it means a very different thing than what we use the word theory or how we use the word theory in our regular everyday language. A theory in science is a well-studied and well-established explanation of natural phenomena. It is confirmed through significant observation and experimentation. So this explanation has been tested numerous times, and there is significant evidence that supports this explanation, so much so that it has not been disproved by any other experimentation. Okay, so it's important to keep in mind as you read and are exposed to more scientific terms that you think about how the term is used in science and not how the term is used in everyday language. All right, so that's the end of mini lecture 1.1. You should ask yourself these questions to make sure that you can answer them to ensure that you understand the information from the section and from the lecture. Remember that since this is a video, you can rewatch it several times. You can pause, speed it up, slow it down, and hopefully this was helpful.